All right, guys, what's going on? This is LSU Recruiting HQ, and it is December 6th, 2023, the LSU football season. To me, the regular season, I guess. We still have a bowl game to play, but it's wrapped up, and this is always my favorite time of the year. Covering recruiting like I do, you have this transfer portal that's just become new in the last couple years that has made December even crazier than recruiting season could even make it. Um, so you have that. You have LSU season ending with a big win against Texas A&M. You have guys like Jaden Daniels going to the Heisman ceremony on this Saturday, and is expected as of right now the odds-on favorite to win the whole thing. You have Malik Neighbors going to the College Football Awards. He is up as a finalist for the Bolitnikoff Award. You have the LSU offensive line, man. They are up for the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in the country. They are a finalist for that. That will be announced on the same day as the Bolitnikoff during the College Football Awards. I believe that's tomorrow night. I'm not 100% sure. But that'll be in Atlanta. LSU will have a bunch of representation in postseason awards this season. Obviously, we talked about the Heisman. Jaden Daniels, after the Pac 12 championship game, where both of those quarterbacks didn't really stand out, absolutely skyrocketed in the Las Vegas odds. Went into the Friday night of championship weekend as a underdog to win the Heisman, and left at over a minus 1,000 favorite, which is kind of crazy to believe. But he is hands down the best football player in college football this season, and he deserves all of that. What you guys want to talk about the most, man? We're going to talk about recruiting, talk about Gabe Relaford making his commitment on the 9th, or I believe he moved it up to the 8th of December. He decommitted from A&M this week with the news that Elijah Robinson is taking the defensive coordinating job at Syracuse. We have that to talk about. We have portal guys to talk about, who's in the portal for LSU. And we're just we're gonna deep dive into it all, man. This is gonna be like our end of the 2023 season review, and we're gonna cover every basis. Starting with the game against A&M. Obviously, LSU finishes the season with a win. That is always a positive thing. As the year, depending on who you ask, right? The guys who had preseason national championship expectations, probably not pretty happy at the end of the season. The guys that predicted them to go 9-3, hit it on the money. Not to toot my own horn, but I predicted they were going to lose to Florida State, Alabama, and Missouri. I flip-flopped the Missouri and Ole Miss game. But hey, listen, a prediction right is a prediction right. I'm not gonna not take credit for that. Like, that's crazy. So they go 9-3 with losses to Florida State at the beginning of the year by 21 points. They lose to Ole Miss where they score 49 points, and then they play Alabama and they lose by 14. And Jane Daniels misses the entire fourth quarter because he got WWE headbutted off the top rope by Dallas Turner, and it took him out the game. But that didn't stop Jane Daniels, man, because he was the best player in college football from that first game to the last game. And it was quite obvious. If it wasn't for LSU's record, it wouldn't have even been a like a topic of discussion. And that's kind of how I would base it. Clearly, when somebody is that head and shoulders above the rest of the field, throw the records out. Like, record doesn't matter to me. You take Jane Daniels off of this LSU team, they might win 5 games. You give me like a sorry ass quarterback, and they probably win 5 games. Maybe that's how bad the defensive line was. And speaking of that, we heard from Brian Kelly this week in his like pre-bowl game, post-season press conference type thing. Obviously, LSU is heading to the ReliaQuest Bowl. Kind of stupid how they selected the bowls. I still wish that they wouldn't let the bowl select who they get, but they do. And LSU got skipped for the Citrus Bowl because they played there last year. They played the opening game in that stadium this year against Florida State. The Orlando was tired of having him. So they skipped them. They went with Tennessee, and it's going to be a terrible matchup between Tennessee and Iowa, and it's going to be a terrible matchup between LSU and Wisconsin. Like one of the most disappointing things about the season in the defense, and then you have this bowl game selection. Like I was really hoping we were going to play somebody like Notre Dame or like somebody good. No offense to Wisconsin. I'm sure they had a great year. I'm sure I didn't watch a single Wisconsin game except for when they lost to Ohio State. I'm sure they have a bunch of great players and all that cool stuff. But they're 7-5, and I watched LSU every game, and I don't think Jane Daniels is gonna play, but I don't even care because it doesn't matter. Gary Nussmeier is gonna hang 50 on him as well. Like I said, that is a topic for another day. I'm not even going to get into the bowl game stuff. Let's talk about what Brian Kelly said. Brian Kelly obviously announced what the timetable was going to be looking like for this offseason. And kind of intriguing here, he said no staff change. Well, he's already done player evals. They have a good idea of who is coming back and who's going, who's playing in the bowl game, who's not, all that good stuff. He's obviously going to let the kids do that, announcing themselves. It's not his place to tell people what those kids' decisions are. So we should be finding out more about that over the next couple weeks. Big guys you're talking about are like Makai Wingo, even Kyron Lacey could leave. It would be huge getting him back in that wide receiver room. You have guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. that are not coming back. I could almost put my entire life savings on that. Those two don't need to come back at all. So you have those guys that are like 50-50, guys like Mingo, or not Mingo, Wingo, and Mason Smith on the defensive line that you're waiting to hear from. Tank Guillory, he is one as well that would be nice to come back. And then you have the issues with the cornerback room, right? He commented on Deuce Chestnut and Denver Harris, basically saying that they're still not with the team, they're not playing the bowl game, and they're going to meet with them soon on what their future is. This transfer stuff is crazy. Like, some people can transfer 50 times, some people can't transfer but more than once. Just ask Jalen Cook for the basketball team. I'm not sure how all that stuff works, and I'm not going to get into the details how it works. But if Denver Harris and Deuce Chestnut aren't with the team, obviously that leaves you thin again in that room. You got a guy like LaTerrence Welch who's already put his name into the portal. A big 6-foot corner out of Acadiana who is a sophomore. Probably was going to play a decent amount this upcoming year, but he decided to take his talents. Well, he hasn't decided yet, but he has entered his name in the portal, and I'm sure he's going to take his talent somewhere. You're hoping that you can hang on to everybody else in that room, especially in the safety room, all that stuff. You have guys like Andre Sam Major Burns that I don't think have any eligibility left. You have a guy like Javion Taviano, who would be big if you can get him back. So let's talk about the guys that have entered their names in the portal. You have Trey Bradford, who has entered the portal for the 50th time in his career. As you might guys remember, he was on that 2019 class and came in, played a little bit, transferred to Oklahoma, didn't play, came back, didn't play. He actually caught the very first pass against Florida State on that like swing pass. He was the one that played and caught that pass, and he hasn't played since. Really, it's crazy. Then you have Armani Goodwin. Didn't see him at all this year. Not sure if he was still recovering from his injury or what was going on there, but he never saw any playing time. He has entered his name in the portal. Like we just talked about, LaTerrence Welch is in the portal. He's probably the most notable guy that played a decent amount this year. Saw game action, probably 6 or 7 games this year. Ole Miss, I believe he got the start in that game. And then you got Jackson McGowan and a tight end. That tight end room's loaded. I don't think LSU is... obviously, you don't want to see anybody go. But I think LSU will be fine in that room. More or less, you're concerned about that that DB room, just like you were this season and the season before, right? So, that being said, Brian Kelly also touched on some potential staff changes. A lot of people I've talked to are feeling good that Matt House is not going anywhere, guys. And at this point, I'd be shocked if he was. I see him out there recruiting. I know that's not the end all be all, but it'd be hard for me to think that they're out here like hustling these kids, basically sending Matt House out there to recruit, and then a week later after they sign, they're gonna shake hands. Like, I just don't see that happening. So I'd expect Matt House to be back, but definitely see changes to the staff. What do they do with Jimmy Lindsey? Do they move him to the off-field role? Do they hire a new defensive line coach? Do they hire a new DBs coach? What they've been saying is at least 2 for sure are gone, and then you could see possibly more than that. I don't know which 2. I don't know who they would be looking at hiring. Everybody has their suspects. I don't really get into that. I kind of just focus on the recruiting side of things, and kind of just update y'all on what's going on. So that's what I'm doing. I'm updating on y'all what's going on. So my job with recruiting obviously is heating up closer to signing day. You have a big commitment coming this week. I believe Gabe Relaford is the best defensive lineman in the state of Louisiana this year. I know people are going to say, what about Dominic McKinley? And Dominic McKinley's a great player, right? And I'm not just saying that because he's committed to A&M. Like, he is seriously a great player. He's a 5-star player. But Gabe Relaford has just come out of nowhere and shot up boards. He decommitted from A&M after a visit to LSU. As an LSU fan, you got to love where things stand with Gabe right now. And like I said, I think he moved his commitment up to the 8th. I'm not 100% sure on that. It was originally the 9th. But I think he had like some scheduling thing where he had to move it up. So expect that this week. Like where LSU stands right there, that'll be a big boost to that defensive line class. That's kind of lacking this year. You'd like to see LSU make even more moves and maybe go get one of these JUCO guys. The top JUCO player in the country is still feeling out his options. You got the commitment from Sean Washington a couple days ago, which will help that defensive line as well. And obviously returning some of the guys that you have there now would help. I mean, so none of that's really out of the picture. So let's talk about the transfer portal, what everybody wants to talk about, speculate, whatever it is. Talk about the names that I'm hearing. Obviously, you guys can look at the transfer portal. You go on any recruiting service website and the portal website, and you can look at whoever you want. Everybody's name is in there who's entered the portal. I go off a base of who is actually physically in the portal, not who is rumored to be in the portal. Like, until that name hits the portal, I don't care what people are saying, because until it hits the portal, it's not official, right? The one, probably the biggest one fish out there for Brian Kelly and his staff has got to be Jordan Gilbert, a guy from U-High, right in your backyard, out of high school, a top 10 safety, a top 150 player in the country. He goes to A&M, and he enters his name into the portal. He has 2 years of eligibility. He saw significant playing time this year, finished with 61 tackles, 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions this year, and he was an incredible player. He suffered a shoulder injury this year, after about 2 games. So coming off an injury, looking to bounce back, maybe looking to come home. It kind of makes sense. LSU needs safeties with Major Burns and Andre Sam probably not returning. That's a guy you definitely want to keep an eye out on if you're paying attention to the portal. Another guy who just entered his name into the portal, Xavion Thomas. A lot of you guys have heard this name all year round, as a guy LSU could reach out to, especially after the firing of Zach Arnett. Xavion Thomas is a Louisiana native, played at John Ehret, been at Mississippi State for 2 seasons, I believe. He's a wide receiver, kick returner, special teams guy, and he is unbelievably good in punt returning and kick returning. He's one of the best in the country. He was number 5 in the NCAA in punt return average this year. He had a 63-yard punt return against Georgia. He's a first-team All-American punt returner, freshman All-American, and he returned his first kickoff return against Texas A&M this year. Just a guy who is dominating in the return game. A guy who also had a good year receiving. Surprisingly, he's not one of these guys who just comes in and fair catches balls and then doesn't play on offense. He played a significant amount of pass this year. Had 40 catches, 503 yards, and a touchdown this season. But you had a Mississippi State team that finished second to last in passing. So not a lot of spreading the wealth there, if you know what I mean. But he's a guy from Louisiana, a guy that LSU desperately needs to target and get something, if not in the receiving game, definitely in the return game. He would be a tremendous boost after what you have with Gregory Clayton and the Aaron Anderson spectacle that was the first game. And then, the third guy that I'm looking out for is Ohio State cornerback Jair Brown. He was at Warren Easton, I believe, through his first 3 years of high school, and then he ended up transferring to a school in Ohio. He committed to Ohio State, but he's from New Orleans, so he played a lot, 195 snaps in 2022, and he did pretty well. It says here that he was targeted 13 times, gave up 5 catches for 61 yards, penalized just once. I don't see any 2023 stats, which is kind of concerning. But he's one of the guys, a long, talented corner, Jair Brown, out of Ohio State, 5'10", maybe could fill in that nickel role that you're going to be left with, and really have struggled at. That is a position that, you had Harold Perkins playing, and you're kind of hoping that you can get him out of that position. But if you have to, you're going to have to play him there again. So hopefully with the guys like J.K. Johnson coming back, who broke his foot, maybe you add a couple guys into the portal from that secondary, and you can bolster this roster and be competitive. And like I said, we'll see what happens with the staff changes and all that good stuff. But a lot going on with LSU, a lot of going on in college football in general. It has been crazy. We're going to be keeping you guys up to date, I promise. Like I said, man, keep an eye out for Gabe Relaford's commitment on later on this week. He is announcing between LSU and USC on Friday. So keep an eye out Keep an eye out for LSU recruiting stuff, man. If you're not already, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and subscribe to the channel here. It's completely free. Every single one of those costs you nothing. All it does is help us out and keep giving you guys the content that you guys all love. I will see you guys next time. Have a great weekend and enjoy this holiday season and recruiting season and the end of the season in football. All of that stress of watching LSU football is gone until next year. Well, I guess next year, because technically they don't play until January. But yeah, so yeah, we're going to keep it locked in, man. We're going to have updates for you guys pretty much every day with what's going on in the portal. Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it is where you need to be looking for all this information. Peace.